Okay, here we go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the Planning Corporate Service meeting of the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Kincardine to order 5 o'clock on July 10th at the Municipal Administration Center. Roll call this evening. Deputy Mayor Clark.
Present.
Councillor Blackwell.
Present.
Councillor Kavanaugh.
Present.
Councillor Hinchberger.
Present.
Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Prenger. Councillor Steinoff Gray.
Present.
Councillor Stewart.
Present.
And I'd also like to acknowledge we have a number of staff here. Is there anyone online this evening from staff? No staff online. And we have a number of members of public in the hall as well. I'd like to ask Councillor Hinchberger for the land acknowledgement statement, please.
We would like to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which includes the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation and the Chippewas of Saugeen First Nation, whose ancestors were the first to inhabit, care for, and live on this land. We recognize and deeply appreciate the contributions that Indigenous peoples have made, both in caring for this land and shaping and strengthening this community, our province, and our country. As a public service organization, we are dedicated to learning and acknowledging Indigenous history and culture, and are committed to actions that move us towards a journey of truth, healing, and reconciliation with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, the Métis Nation of Ontario, and the historic Saugeen Métis.
You've all received the agenda package. Are there any amendments, additions, or deletions to the agenda this evening? We have one from the clerk, please.
Moved by Andrea Clark, seconded by Rory Kavanaugh, that council approve the following amendment to the agenda. Addition item 6.5 Rural Economic Development Program Agreement 2023 bylaw.
All in favor of that addition? And that's carried. Once again, I'd ask if any members have any disclosure or pecuniary interest, they declare it now or at the time of the item during the agenda. And we have a motion to go into the Committee of Adjustment. Clerk, please.
Moved by Amanda Steinhoff Gray, seconded by Doug Kennedy, that council move into Committee of Adjustment and upon completion, return to council.
All in favor? And that's carried. All right, I'd like to, it's going to sound pretty weird for the folks in the hall, but this is just the process. Bear with us. So we've just left corporate planning meeting. Now we're going to move into the Committee of Adjustment meeting, and then we'll come out of that, and then we'll go back into a different one. It's the way government has asked us to do it, told us to do it, and we like doing it that way. I'd like to call this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment to order at 5:03 at the Municipal Administration Center. Roll call remains the same. Once again, if you have a pecuniary interest, to declare it now or is at the time of the item arises. And we have the clerk to read the motion regarding the adoption of minutes.
Moved by Beth Blackwell, seconded by Bill Stewart, that the minutes of the Committee of Adjustment meeting of June 12th, 2023 be adopted as printed.
All in favor of that? And that's carried. We have one minor variance application this evening, and I'll have the clerk read the motion, please.
So the motion is that Committee of Adjustment approve minor variance A 2023-15 to increase the height to 7 meters for an accessory structure, subject to the conditions on the decision sheet.
All right, we'd like to welcome our planner here this evening. Karina, are you going to speak to these? Oh, Jillian is online. If would you like to defer to Jillian? Okay. Jillian, thank you very much for attending our meeting this evening. We're happy to have you present the application, please.
Thank you.
Well, I'd like to welcome Karina here to our meeting this evening, who will present the, oh, she's back again. I'm sorry.
You froze on us.
Oh, sorry. Internet can be finicky. So this is an application for 317 Mechanics Avenue. The applicant is proposing to increase the height permissions for an accessory structure from 4.5 meters to 7 meters. And the purpose is to allow for a taller garage that can accommodate a mobile home vehicle. The application has been assessed against the 4 tests under the Planning Act, and it meets those 4 tests, and then it maintains the intent of the residential designation and zone. It is appropriate for the use of the land, and it will not impact the land uses of the surrounding area. The application has been circulated for comments. No agency comments were received. However, 1 public comment was received, and that public comment raised concern with the height of the garage and its incompatibility with the area. And that letter is attached to the agenda package for your review. No other comments were received, and I believe that resident is registered to speak tonight. So staff are of the opinion that the variance meets the 4 tests, and I am therefore recommending approval of the variance. I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Okay, thank you for that presentation, Ms. Smith. At this point in the agenda, I will call upon the applicant to speak to the application. Are there any comments from the applicant regarding the application? Okay. Are there any comments from any member of the public that would like to speak to the application? Yep, thank you. Just come on up to the microphone, introduce yourself for the public record, please. I'm sorry, just for guidelines, is there a time frame for? No. Okay. Very good. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Well, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to address the chair and members of the Committee of Adjustments this evening. My name is Ken McEwen, and I'm here with my 2 brothers, Jamie and Sandy. And we are the owners of the property next door to the east at 319 Mechanics Ave. We are here this evening to object to the minor variance file A 2023-015, where the applicant is requesting a 2.5 meter increase to the current 4.5 meter height allowance. As we think about it, based on the June 22 letter, the key reasons for it are that it simply overwhelms our property due to the excessive height and associated massing. In my language, as I think of giving my vintage, the proposed structure is in feet is a 40 by 42.7 by 26.25 feet high. The movement from 4.5 meters to 7 meters in height is a 56% increase. The proposed building is comparable, as I think about it, is comparable to what is used and what is housed to use modern farm equipment, except for perhaps the large combine. We feel it is not consistent with the residential area, as noted in our letter. There are probably other places more appropriate for the motor vehicle. At this point, given the information that we have, and we think that the proposed structure is simply too high. At this point, my brother Jamie will now speak to the 4 points of variance, minor variance. Thank you.
Hi, all. I'm Jamie McEwen, Ken's brother, and I'm going to speak to the second written submission we made dated July 7th. This is a review of the county planning report, staff report, and it's signed from me. Our first submission was from the 3 of us, 3 brothers. This one's from me. Main reason for that is I'm a retired professional planner. I have extensive background in planning, including committee adjustments over about 35 years. We have a number of concerns with the planning analysis contained in the staff report regarding the tests of under the Planning Act for minor variance, and I'm sure you're all aware that there are 4 tests. The first I'll address is the intent of the zoning bylaw. The zoning bylaw, in my opinion, distinguishes between principal buildings and accessory buildings located in the R1 residential zone. Principal buildings are the main use of the lot, and any of the other uses are subordinate. Principal buildings are intended to be larger buildings on the lot. They're both higher, have cover more of the lot, and have larger side yards. And if you look at the maximums in our submission, you can see that tells a story that for a house, for a principal building, they're much greater than for an accessory building like a garage. And this is consistent with planning practice. You have a taller building, you tend to have more space around, more elbow room because of shadow and airflow and visual impact and so on. In my opinion, the height of the accessory building should be compared to other accessory buildings. It shouldn't be judged against principal buildings like houses. The R1 neighborhood is not characterized by 7-meter high accessory buildings, which are effectively 2 stories in height. The intent of the bylaw does allow 2-story accessory buildings and other zones, but it doesn't in the residential zone. So really what I'm saying is there's 2 categories of buildings, in my opinion, if you look at the intent of the zoning bylaw. There's principal buildings and there are accessory buildings that are subordinate, and the standards that apply to them are different, and they should be tested and judged differently. The storage of multiple and very large vehicles for convenience needs to be balanced against its impact on the predominantly residential purpose of the area. In residential zones, priority is given to the housing of people over the housing of vehicles, as evidence that the housing is the principal use and garages are the accessory subordinate use on the lot. So that's the first test. I think it fails it, and that's enough to refuse the application on its own, but I'll go through some of the others. Appropriate development on the land. I'm used to this usually dealing more with the physical form of the building because it's development as opposed to use, land use. In this case, the height of the proposed building is the main issue. The proposed building, as Ken said, it's supposed to be 7 meters versus 4.5. It's about 56% increase, with no increase in the side and rear setbacks for a higher building as would be required for a house. If you go back, the houses have much greater setback requirements than the garage does. So you're getting a taller building, but you're not getting the spacing around it. And the main reason, as we know, is as in the submission, in the application for the proposed building heights to accommodate a motorhome with what looks like a 5-meter high overhead garage door. Now, we understand that the maximum vehicle height permitted on highways in Ontario is 4.2 meters. So this garage door is scaled to handle the largest vehicles on the road, like a big RV tour bus, tractor trailers, dump trucks could fit in. So surely such massive vehicles don't belong in R1 residential neighborhood at the expense of the quality of life of their local residents. Now, this minor variance only applies to height. There's no guarantee that the building will be constructed what it looks like the images in the application, despite the best intentions of the applicant. The building hasn't been designed yet for a building permit, and that's when all cost, engineering, design constraints, all kinds of things can come into play that will affect it. In particular, we're concerned about the public notice, and actually the diagram in the staff report itself showing the front elevation of the building, because we're looking at whether this building's too high, and if those diagrams aren't properly to scale, they show an elongated building, which is actually 2 meters lower than is proposed. So they're asking for a 2.5 meter increase in height in the bylaw, but the building you're looking at is actually taller than it appears in those diagrams that have been presented to you. And this is a particular concern for the public notice because people are responding about whether they feel it's too high, and they're looking at a building that's actually shorter than is being proposed. This could have been helped if there'd been more detailed information provided at the time of the application. And I could go through that in the report. It doesn't help the committee too, because you need to have the necessary information about elevations, height, what was there before, what's proposed, so you can make an informed decision. I don't think you've been given that information, in due respect. Next test, minor in nature. There's two aspects to this. Usually it's the magnitude of the variance. In this case, as we said, it's 56%. That's usually not considered minor. That's kind of major. It's big, it's a lot, it's a substantial increase. And then there's the impact on the adjacent properties. And in this case, it's the loss of the sense of openness, view to the sky, the shadowing, the visual starkness of the high blank wall that be beside us. The 5-meter high garage door will be quite visible from other properties. There could be night lighting above it, and the doors can be open, it can be obtrusive. The subject property is also on a corner lot, which makes it more difficult to fit it in. Hence, it doesn't have a deep rear yard like adjacent lots along Mechanics Avenue. And so the expanded footprint of this proposed building projects out toward the street. And it's actually, it says in my letter, 6 meters, but we looked at it today. I think it's actually 4 meters from the rear wall of our house. So it's close. Also, it's not mentioned in the staff report, but there are other houses close to this proposed garage. This was a double lot, and if you look at the site plan, it was split. So there's a small house immediately to the west of it, and there's another house to the north of it. I know some of them have been rented. They don't happen to have a brother who's a planner to speak, but they're impacted too. And I really think that the committee should seriously look at those properties, because those are other people's homes that are affected by this as well. We also looked at precedents, looked at what's been the practice in the municipality, seeing if, what has been done about higher garages to accommodate recreation vehicles. Could only find one example, and that was in the south part of town.
Mr. McEwen, thank you for the precedence thing, but minor variances are we don't look for precedences within the minor variances. So this committee needs to stick, as you know, to the 4 minor tests. Do they fit? So help us stay on the issues that will help us make the decision, please. Thank you.
All right. If it hasn't been the practice to permit this. So in summary, at issue is really whether the residential properties in this R1 zone, which currently have the assurance of 4.5 meter maximum, which is ample for the storage of multiple regular sized vehicles. We don't feel the residential character of our property and the others should be compromised to accommodate the oversized vehicles. There are other locations around the Kincardine where vehicles can be safely stored. The staff report really didn't talk about conformity with the Kincardine official plan, but there is a policy about compatibility. And you could see that this type of facility, because it's so large, high big doors and that, is probably not compatible. So it's questionable whether it meets that test as well. So in my opinion, the application fails all 4 tests of the Planning Act and it should be refused.
Thank you for that presentation. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak to this application? Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak to this application? Seeing none, we'll now turn to the Committee of Adjustment, where you can direct any questions that will inform your decisions to the planner, the applicant, or the any member of public that has spoken. So are there any questions from council regarding this minor variance application? Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you through your mayor. The key point for me was the last paragraph of page 5 of the planning report reads that the intent of height requirements is to maintain orderly development and reinforce the character of the area. And for me, I'm thinking the area means the neighborhood in there. This particular neighborhood's not too far from where I live, and I'm a regular walker in that area. And the majority of the homes, it's up near Tim Hortons, and the majority of the homes are older homes and a mix of bungalow ranch. There's a cute little Cape Cod I favor in there. The point being is that they're, 1,000 to 1,500 square foot homes and small lots with small garages. And so my question I think would be for Bruce County Planning is, am I reading it correctly about reinforcing the character of the area? That's synonymous with the neighborhood. Is that correct?
Jillian, can you respond to that, please?
So when considering the character of the area, we're still considering what's the uses surrounding it. Is it residential? Is it industrial? And is the proposed variance consistent with what you defined in those areas?
The follow-up, it kind of makes me think of another agenda item that we have tonight related to development in Inver Huron, where it talks about the principle that if you're going to build new next to something existing and say you're going to build medium density or high density, and there generally is this principle that you'll phase that in before you get to this maximum sort of height. The other question I have is that the zoning bylaw, the maximum limit for the principal building is 10 meters and for an accessory structure is 4.5. And without getting into the nitty gritty, it kind of lines up with what I heard a representative of the applicant say is the principle there is that the accessory structure should be subordinate to the principal one. And I am having a little struggle with what looks to be roughly a 1,600 square foot, 1.5/2 story that is actually very close to being the dominant structure on the lot. So that wasn't a question, that was a statement.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. And through you, we're going to see more and more of this, maybe not in garages, but second SRUs. Just give me some insight in some SRUs. If this gentleman or this owner decided to build an apartment on top of his garage, which is going to come under Bill 109 and everything else, what would be the height that we would allow that secondary residential unit to be?
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. So it would be the 4.5, which is the current bylaw requirement for accessory structures.
But what I'm asking for, if he decided to put an apartment on top of his garage, which will be coming in the future, probably for a lot of locations, what would be the height of an apartment over a garage? What would we allow if we allowed a secondary residential unit, which is coming in a lot of lots, please?
Dwayne, I'll defer to you.
To you, Mayor. Yeah, the accessory provisions apply to the ARUs right now. So they are capped at 4.5, even though Bill 23 does allow ARUs in accessory dwelling or accessory buildings, we're still maximized at our current zoning bylaw for accessory buildings, which is 4.5. Through our comprehensive review, we'll be reviewing that to make some recommendations on its compatibility to allow for an ARU in an accessory building, which at 4.5, very restrictive to have an ARU on a second story. It's headroom issues, stairwells, it's just a bunch of issues that way. So that would be reviewed coming up in the next comprehensive review, which we know we're underway with.
Any other questions? So the planner has rightly stated that they're the four tests. And Mr. McEwen responded to them in that regard too. So that is the basis for your decision-making process about how that fits within the intent. The application is the application minor, and what's the impact on the neighboring community. So we have, are there any further questions? So we've had the clerk read the motion that we would approve the minor variance application, moved and seconded. Oh, we haven't got it moved and seconded. So we need a mover and seconder, Councillor Stewart and Councillor Blackwell. All in favor of approving the minor variance, please indicate. All opposed? And the minor variance application has passed. All right. Thank you to the applicant and the neighbors who have both attended. We appreciate your input into our decision-making process. Clerk, we have a motion to adjourn from Committee of Adjustment.
So this is moved by Jennifer Pregner, seconded by Mike Hinchberger, that Committee of Adjustment meeting adjourn at 5:25 PM.
All in favor? And that's carried. So we are back into our council meeting. It's a lot of popcorn. Okay. So we have some motions that we will be addressing within our council meeting. Amendments to the Highway Traffic Act. Clerk, please.
Moved by Beth Blackwell, seconded by Bill Stewart, that the Council of the Municipality of Kincardine supports the County of Norfolk and multiple other municipalities in requesting the Ontario government amend section 205.1 of the Highway Traffic Act to permit municipalities to locate automated speed enforcement systems permanently or temporarily on any roadway under the jurisdiction of the municipality and as determined by the municipality beyond designated community and school safety zones, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Ontario Minister of Transportation, the Ontario Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, MPP Lisa Thompson, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario.
So you've heard the resolution. Is there any discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. 5.2 Secord Monument Placement. Clerk. Okay.
So it's moved by Beth Blackwell. Whereas the Secord Monument has been removed from its previous location due to construction, and whereas the proposed new location post-construction won't allow the monument to serve effectively as a sundial, now therefore be it resolved that the council directs staff to defer the placement of the Secord Monument until council has the opportunity to review its placement.
So the motion was moved, but we do require a seconder. Councillor Kennedy, please. Discussion. Councillor Blackwell, do you have? Who, I'm sorry, who made, did you move it or?
No, I didn't.
Oh. Beth moved it. Like to comment? You don't have to. I just wondered if.
Thank you. Through you, I do want to acknowledge that this has been brought up before and that it is has been a challenging conversation for our community. The reason I'm bringing it up at this time is because it has been moved due to infrastructure, and before returning it to the proposed location, I would like to have a conversation about it. Partially because the location that is moving to won't allow it to be read or used as a sundial as intended, but also because I do feel that the inscription may require some reflection.
Councillor Stewart.
I don't know if that's quite the motion you presented. You were just presenting a placement. So you have to be careful when she starts talking about the inscription. But anyways, I was thinking of where you want to place it. Might be an option beside the Dairy Queen, the parkette beside the Dairy Queen, which is open and the sundial would work. Just a recommendation. Thank you.
Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I have a proposed amendment if this would be the proper time for that. And you'd like it to me to read it in entirety? Okay. So I'll just preface this to say that in the name of transparency and the decision making and what we project to the public, they're in line with what Councillor Blackwell said. So I'm proposing that the motion be amended as such. Whereas the Secord Monument has been removed from its previous location due to construction, and whereas the proposed new location post-construction won't allow the monument to serve effectively as a sundial, and whereas the commemorative text on the monument contains passages that do not reflect on contributions to the municipality of Kincardine, the province of Ontario, or to Canada, and are not consistent with the municipality's commitment to developing and completing actions to improve inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. And now therefore it be resolved that council directs staff to defer the placement of the Secord Monument until council has the opportunity to disposition these issues.
So there's an amendment to the motion proposed. We need a seconder for that amendment, please. Councillor Steinhoff Gray, please. So we will begin with discussion regarding the proposed amendment. Councillor Hinchberger, any further comments or?
Yes, I have like two further comments. I think the motion is written leads to two logical questions is what to do to ensure the integrity of the monument in the interim? And then what would be the conditions need to be met in order to discontinue this pause? And I will say that like right now, the monument is stored essentially the location that Councillor Stewart recommended as a possible permanent home for it inside construction fencing. So it's fairly secure in a place right now and protected. What to be done about what needs to happen to go forward to ultimately disposition these issues is, I think, something that requires further consideration at this time. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Clark, please.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. So dealing with the friendly amendment that Councillor Hinchberger has brought forward, I'll say this, that it's become perhaps more prevalent in recent times that we have these discussions where there is a monument or statue that has historic relevance, but equally there is perhaps a uncomfortable past associated with it. And the question is, as Councillor Hinchberger has mentioned, what do we do and what are the steps forward? Not a question that we answer this evening, and that's the reason for the pause. However, there are some guidance that's been put forward concerning transitional justice and how we look at acknowledging historic facts while moving towards some degree of reconciliation. There are those who will argue for preservation and that history in its truest form remains unaltered. Perhaps the problem, of course, with that is that the monument and the original intent for which it is erected has not evolved with the contextual lens that society now looks through. So we ask ourselves the question as to whether or not it still serves the intended purpose and whether it best serves the community. Councillor Hinchberger has talked about the what is actually transcribed itself. And we look at the issue of perhaps recontextualization. And that's where we adapt the monument, but perhaps alter or extend the narrative to create a fuller picture. That in itself is a tool for educational purposes and re-educating. There is the option of reclaiming, where we looked at an object that has had perhaps a pejorative symbolism, and we reclaim that symbolism for one of empowerment, particularly to disgenerated societies. And then there is the removal. I don't advocate certainly for that at this stage. The real important point with regards to the pause and the motion this evening is for us as a council not only to take the time perhaps to reflect on what are the available options, but more importantly for us to engage with the members of the community who are the stakeholders in this. And so I urge not only council to engage in conversations, but not to fall foul of becoming or engaging in an echo chamber where we look to individuals who have perhaps similar lived experiences, similar cultures, similar opinions, often our friends and family. And if you engage with them, you may get a similar opinion of yourselves and believe that it overrepresents. It's really important both for community members and for councillors to figuratively reach across the table to speak to individuals who have different lived experiences, who have different cultures and different perspectives, and know that when you come to that conversation, that it's not a conversation of a zero-sums game. I've often heard the issue of the monument phrased as preservation or removal. There are other options like that we have just mentioned this evening. So if we come to the table understanding that it's not zero sums, we become less positional in the method in which we have that discourse. The monument itself is not a divisive feature within the community. The tone and the nature of our discussions could be, but they need not be, if we understand that we are seeking to reach a resolution, that there probably will have to be concessions on all sides. And if we come to it knowing that whatever the conversations are, they must be respectful. Once we go out of that barrier of respect, we stop listening and we stop learning. The monument in itself is an opportunity for us to grow and strengthen. And if we believe as a community that we are genuinely stronger because of our diversities and our differences, not in spite of, we will use this to unify a community working towards a resolution. So when we come to those discussions, I really encourage us to come with, this is what I want, but this is what I could live with. And within that, we will find a resolution. The monument discussion in itself is invaluable. It's something that we should have had long ago. We can't be remiss in noting that this monument is the only monument erected in Canada for a veteran of the Civil War. So irrespective of the perspective that you come with, you must understand that those who have lived experiences that are different from ancestral history will view this differently. When we come with that understanding, we listen, we reflect, and we process. We will come together in finding a solution, and we will be stronger and better for it. That's it.
I think it would be appropriate for me to take a moment and just clap because that was well spoken. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Well spoken. Councillor Stewart, please.
I agree with you. We need to have a discussion and a very open discussion. And it won't be tonight either. And we have to look at it. I just wanted to make sure that we understand the monument was put up because of his service as a doctor in Kincardine. So there will have to be, there's no sum game here. We'll have to go back and forth. So yeah, I think we need to probably modify the amendment a little bit, but maybe we need to defer this whole issue to another date. Thank you.
Excuse me, can you read the proposed amendment, please?
So the proposed, I'll read. So it was moved by Councillor Hinchberger, seconded by Councillor Steinhoff Gray. So what we're at, what you're looking to add to the motion. So you're just looking to add, whereas the commemorative text on the monument contains passages that do not reflect on contributions to the municipality of Kincardine, the province of Ontario, or to Canada, and are not consistent with the municipality's commitment to developing and completing actions to improve inclusion, diversity, equity, and access, IDF. And then the second thing that you're looking to amend is the very last line where it says review its placement. That would be taken out and it would be disposition these issues.
So that is an amendment to the original motion which had the intent of deferring the placement. So we're not deciding on where it goes, what it says, anything like that. The intent of both the amendment and the primary motion is that we defer the placement. And you know, we'll included in that is the understanding that staff will, you know, protect or whatever it takes to maintain the integrity of the statue. And the other part that's included in here, and it's unspoken but needs to be said, and it's not the driving force, is as soon as it's not placed as part of the original construction, there will be additional costs that will be incurred if or when it's placed again. So council will there will be an additional cost to the construction or placement or something. Just I'm not trying to influence the discussion in that regard, but as we decide, those are things that we consider as well. So we have the amendment that we're going to vote on, moved by Mike and seconded by Councillor Steinhoff Gray. All in favor of the amendment to the motion? And that is carried. Now we have the original amended motion. Can you read that for us again, Clerk, please?
This is going back to moved by Beth Blackwell, seconded by Doug Kennedy. Whereas the Secord Monument has been removed from its previous location due to construction, and whereas the proposed new location post-construction won't allow the monument to serve effectively as a sundial, and whereas the commemorative text on the monument contains passages that do not reflect on contributions to the municipality of Kincardine, the province of Ontario, or to Canada, and are not consistent with the municipality's commitment to developing and completing actions to improve inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. And now therefore be it resolved that council direct staff to defer the placement of the Secord Monument until council has the opportunity to disposition these issues.
Heard the motion. Any more discussion? All in favor? And that motion is carried. All right, consideration of bylaws 6.1 2023 consolidated rates and fees amendment 5 bylaw. Clerk, please.
Moved by Mike Hinchberger, seconded by Andrea Clark, that the 2023 Consolidated Rates and Fees Amendment 5 bylaw be deemed to read a first, second, and third time. Finally passed and numbered as bylaw 2023-116.
Heard the motion. Is there any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Advertising and revenue generating policy. Motion, clerk, please.
Moved by Rory Kavanagh, seconded by Amanda Steinhoff Gray, that the advertising and revenue generation policy bylaw be deemed to read a first, second, and third time. Finally passed and numbered as bylaw 2023-117.
Heard the motion. Is there any discussion? Councillor Stewart, please.
Yes, I might have missed it reading through the new policy, but where do these extra funds actually end up? Are they end up in a reserve or they end up in operating budget? I mean, where do all this advertising money go to? And what's it used for?
For you. CAO, please.
So through you, Mayor, my understanding is we go through general revenues, so.
Deputy Mayor, please.
Sorry, I need to declare pecuniary interest.
The general nature thereof, please.
I advertise within the municipality.
That's clear enough. Right on. Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, last week I had expressed that I'd like to expand the list of inclusions to include cannabis, gambling, and pornography. And that I'd also like to clarify within the policy where a complaint should be filed. I know that we basically had council and then it was getting on the agenda the next day, but I'm just wondering whether it's possible to request that that be added, whether that's through amendment or just through direction.
How would you guide us on that, CAO, please?
But so I would suggest that if you're looking to amend the policy, you're making a proposal to do so here with your fellow council members. And then if that gets support, then we can take that back and make those amendments and present an updated policy as per council's direction.
So if it was the inclusion of 3 or 4 words like that, and we would just approve the policy like that, like it's like, do you need to bring an updated policy back for not that it's not an insignificant change, but it's yeah, we may as well do it like that. Would you like to make an amendment to the policy, Councillor Blackwell, please?
Yes.
Propose an amendment.
Through you, I'd like to propose an amendment that we include cannabis, gambling, and pornography on the list of exclusions.
So we've heard that proposed amendment. Is there a seconder for that? Any more discussion? All in favor? Oh, excuse me. Councillor Stewart, discussion regarding that proposed amendment?
Thank you. Through you.
We had a seconder. It was Councillor Kavanagh. Yes.
I'm trying to understand, pornography cannot be in the Canadian advertising standards. I mean, try to explain to me, and maybe I'll ask the CEO to explain, the standards would not allow pornography. So I'm sort of, why do we need to add that as addition? And gambling, unfortunately, I am not against gambling because gambling is written under. I mean, there's sports gambling, all sorts of things, guys. And, you know, unfortunately, it is part of the law of Ontario. So we're going to tell people that we're against the laws of Ontario. But I'd like to know a little more about the standardization. I'm not familiar with the actual policy, but I can't believe that pornography is allowed. Thank you.
through you, yeah, the report and the actual policy has the link to what the guidelines are with the Canadian standards. So if you're looking for a summary, we can provide that. I'm not prepared to give a summary tonight on what's allowed or not allowed under the Canadian advertising standards. This is what I would suggest through you, Mayor, is the rationale for having a discussion about whether or not the policy requires amendment.
Any further discussion about the proposed amendment? Councillor Hinchberger and then Councillor Blackwell, please.
I think the CAO said this, but in my own words, like if I'm going to be asked to entertain a revision to the policy, I'd like to go do a little background work myself. And while I'm not saying I'm against it, I don't think I'd like to be in a position where I'd be voting on that tonight.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Yeah, thank you. Through you. Yeah, I'm certainly open to deferring this and looking at the standards. The other is that the current draft bylaw discusses that alcohol related advertising wouldn't be in places specific for children or focused on youth. And I think that the gambling and cannabis could fall under those same provisions, and therefore if there were adult only spaces, I would expect that it would fall under the same rules for advertising for alcohol.
So we've heard the proposed amendments. All in favor of the proposed amendment? The proposed amendment, your proposed amendment is to include alcohol, pornography, gambling in the restricted areas. Is that, I'm sorry, can you read the proposed amendment just to clarify,
So
please?
to amend the motion to include the exclusions of cannabis, gambling and pornography.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Yes, sorry, thank you. I'm listening to what my fellow councillors are saying, and I'm wondering whether it's more appropriate. I recognize that I have a motion on the floor, but to defer this to have the opportunity to look at the standards. Yeah.
Yes. So where are we at this point?
Mover and seconder could take the, and
Yeah.
the mover and seconder both agree that we could remove the amendment. That's right.
All right, so I'm going to allow Councillor Prenger for comment, and then I'll the clerk has given some procedural guidelines. Okay, go ahead. You can.
Yeah. we can do it with the amendment.
Okay, the proposed, if we have the mover and seconder both agree to retract their support of this, then the amendment goes away and we can direct staff to defer this, and we come back with a I will come back to you, Councillor Prenger. Then we would have a different process forward. So the mover and seconder, are you supportive of retracting your support of that? All right, Councillor Prenger, please, regarding the proposed motion.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I have a couple comments about the policy wording. 5.2 India. India 3, actually. There's quite a subset of little notes there. It says all political and other non-commercial expressive advertising will indicate that it's paid for by a party or candidate so as to avoid any impression that the municipality is supporting any particular party, et cetera, et cetera. That is, just sorry, give me 1 second to go back to the actual bylaw, is under the higher subheading of India, which says that is located on municipal property that is designated or zoned as environmental protection area, unless. So I don't see how 3 actually applies to India. It should apply to any municipal property. I think it's actually just been put in the wrong spot. If I'm reading it correctly, I suggested it be. I don't think we would want to make that distinction only if it's on environmentally protected area. That doesn't make any sense to me. So that's the first comment I'm gonna make.
Could you direct that comment to the clerk's office, just so that your your comments are held in the right context. Okay? Thank
Sure,
you,
yes,
Counselor.
I can do that. I have,
Another comment?
yes. Do you want me just to say that I have comments and I can send them to you, or do you want me to go through them while we're here? So people,
Because we are moving towards deferring this, then we would have opportunity to direct those comments to staff again. All
all right,
right,
I will do that then, rather than going through it through the meeting. Thanks.
thank you. Councillor Kennedy, you had a comment, please?
Yes, through the chair, I think this money, if community service head Jane was here, she'd say this, I think, but was going towards this year's budget. The 25,000 that we're gonna find from advertising, that if we don't pass this in the near future, will go away for this year, just so everybody knows that. Thank you.
Deferrals always have an effect that we sometimes don't intend. But sometimes it's the right thing to do. So that's always council's decision which way we go in that. All right, I bet someone would like to make a motion that we defer this until staff has had time to recraft and redistribute and put it back on the agenda at a later date. CIO, please.
Sure, I suppose I would just ask, what are we recrafting? If there's an error, we'll certainly take that feedback, but if there's amendments that are being proposed overall to the bylaw, I think we need some specific direction.
So the comments from Councillor Blackwell were kind of minor wording changes. Councillor Pranger, what sort of timeline could we expect your comments to be submitted to the clerk's office? And they're not significant policy amendments. They're just tidying up of the wording and the placement of direction within the subsets. Is that what you're suggesting?
Correct, through you, Chair. And I can send those to the clerk tonight.
By 11 o'clock?
So we could expect to see this bylaw back on the agenda of the first week in August?
Absolutely.
Is that appropriate?
It's possible for sure. We'll just make sure the director is attending the meeting, I think.
This one will likely come back in August sometime. All right. Okay. Yes, so we need a motion. Councillor Steinhoff Gray, I bet you'd like to defer this motion till when?
Until the first meeting, we can bring it back in August as nominated by Jill.
Move, seconded by Councillor Stewart. All in favor of that?
Yes.
And that's carried. Ministry of Transportation agreement to construct water main bylaw. Clerk, please.
This is moved by Doug Kennedy, seconded by Beth Blackwell, that the Ministry of Transportation Water Main Agreement 2023 bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, and third time. Finally passed and numbered as bylaw 2023-118.
You've heard the motion. Is any questions? Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. I know we're just, and through you, Mayor, I know we're just talking about the agreement bylaw, but sooner or later there'll be a cost because we're trying to bring the water main through. Just wanted to understand, did this cost get captured in our budget of 1.025? I think he's answered the question. Thank you very much.
Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Ministry of Transportation sanitary sewer bylaw. Clerk, please.
Moved by Bill Stewart, seconded by Jennifer Pranger, that the Ministry of Transportation Sanitary Sewer Agreement 2023 bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, and third time. Finally passed and numbered as bylaw 2023-119.
Director down there, it's the same answer to the same question. Thank you. All in favor of the motion? That's carried. 6.5 Rural Economic Development Program Agreement bylaw. Clerk, please.
Moved by Mike Kinchberger, seconded by Andrea Clark, that the Rural Economic Development Program Agreement 2023 bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, and third time. Finally passed and numbered as bylaw 2023-120.
All in favor? And that's carried. All right, moving into committee of the whole. Clerk, please.
Moved by Amanda Steinhoff Gray, seconded by Doug Kennedy, that council move into committee of the whole and upon completion return to council.
All in favor? And that's carried. All right, I'd like to call this committee of the whole meeting to order at 5:54. on July 10th, 2023 at the Municipal Administration Center. Are there any, there's no changes to the roll call. Are there any amendments, additions, or deletions to or from the agenda from council members? Seeing none, please disclose any pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof now or as it arises in the meeting. And we have the adoption of the minutes of our last committee of the whole meeting. Clerk, please.
This is moved by Beth Blackwell, seconded by Bill Stewart, that the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting held on July 5th, 2023 be adopted as printed.
All in favor? And that's carried. There were no items from our council meeting that needed discussing. All right, we go into infrastructure and development reports. And this is the John Tidman recommending report. Clerk, please, would you read the motion for this?
Moved by Jennifer Pranger, seconded by Mike Hinchberger, that the committee of the whole recommend that council approve draft plans of subdivision S 2022-015 by JHY 2INV Development, Inc. in accordance with the draft plan and conditions of draft approval. That council approve zoning bylaw amendment Z 2022-084 by JHT 2INV Development, Inc. And further, that council resolve that no further notice is necessary with respect to the minor change in the proposed zoning bylaw amendment in accordance with the provisions of section 3417 of the Planning Act.
Thank you. Karina, are there any comments that you would like to make prior to our council discussion on this file?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I defer to you. I'm happy to provide a summary of the application for council. If not, I'm happy to take any questions.
Can you do Cole's notes?
Yes.
Cole's notes are good.
I
Let's start
certainly
there.
can. So the application is for a draft plan of subdivision and a zoning bylaw amendment. The application was brought forward for a public meeting in November of last year. The applicant has since gone back and made some revisions to address some comments provided by agencies and members of the public and this council. The revisions to the proposal, the layout of the draft plan of subdivision has remained as originally proposed. It includes 12 residential dwelling lots, 1 mixed-use lot, and a park lot as well on a cul-de-sac road. The changes to the zoning bylaw amendment include increasing the lands to be zoned environmental protection to reflect an increased buffer from the Little Sauble River. The applicant also did, through discussions with county and municipal staff, amend the zoning bylaw to provide greater clarity and interpretation for the different zones that are proposed as part of this project. The condition or the zoning bylaw amendment, I should say, and we are seeking our recommendation of approval on that. The draft plan of subdivision, the county is the approval body for the subdivision. So we are seeking your recommendation, this council's recommendation to the county to bring that forward to County Planning and Development Committee at the next available meeting. I would note that with respect to the conditions of draft approval, which includes those provided by municipal staff as well as agencies, we are bringing a report forward to the County Planning and Development Committee this Thursday relating to the Blue Water District School Board conditions. There has been, through another municipality, some concerns raised specifically with this first component of the Blue Water condition, which speaks to accommodation in schools within the area or alternatives if that is not available. And so there is a report going to the Planning and Development Committee to seek county direction on that condition moving forward. So that full condition from the school board is included in your package today. And if there's any questions on that, I'm happy to take and answer those for you. So that concludes my presentation.
So correct me if I'm on the wrong track here. It's my understanding that all the studies have been completed and fulfilled. Saugeen Ojibwe Nation has been contacted and have commented. At this point, we are approving the last of the documents to allow this proposal to move forward.
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. That is correct. We are seeking an approval for this application to bring it forward, both one for the zoning bylaw amendment through this council and then a direction to the county relating to the subdivision.
Are there any questions or comments from council members? Councillor Steinhoff Gray, please.
Yeah, through you, Chair. When I was reading the report, there was a reference in it that said municipal staff advised servicing strategy would be viable for additional comments, but specifically the need to have fire flow testing, which hasn't been conducted. Is there a reason why we would wait for the preparation process and a conditional approval without knowing that? The only reason I ask is ironically, you had the water and waste master plan update in this. And I noticed there's a number of locations where we're 40 liters per second or less for fire suppressant, like for the fire flows. And when you look at the minimum requirement, it's 50 liters per second based on what is instructed in the master plan and what would be our provincial requirement. And so one of the other things you phrased in there was that whenever we have dead ends, and in this case, it's a cul-de-sac, which to me is a dead end, we have that lower flow rate. So I wanted to know, I wanted to understand why we do that approval before actually knowing the answer. Because right now we're over capacity also in that master plan for Tiverton if all the developments happen. So I'm just trying to understand if you could help me.
Right, through you, Mayor Craig. So I think typically, I mean, when we take a look at, you know, a number of whether the site plan approvals, subdivision agreements, generally speaking, we want all the underlying studies available. So that way we can utilize those to help guide our decisions. With this particular file here, I'm not sure why we haven't done the flow testing per se. Now that being said, I am quite confident that flows won't be an issue when we're taking a look at things in parallel to the Bruce Power water supply in that area. But certainly point taken in terms of the dead end, and those are things as we advance through, I'll call it maybe like the technical side of advancing things into a subdivision agreement. We'll review the drawings and we can point out some of those flaws and deal with them through that part of the process.
Councillor Stewart, please.
This is an interesting one. The local folks, which I'm part of, is not really for this project. I think they're not against development, but this is pretty intensive development on 4.15 acres. You're looking at 81 units. Basically, this is farmland. I always had a problem with the official plan. I try to get it changed because that whole area is under settlement designation. And it really is not a settlement. It's not a Tiverton. It's not a King Carden. We do not have any sewer on this property. And I believe that we're going to have to put a new sewer line to the lagoon. I'm not sure who's going to pay for it, Adam, but I'm hoping the developer will have to pay for it. But also the water. I mean, you're looking at Alma. We're going to talk about Mystic Cove and standard streets. Actually drive along Alma. I mean, it's a single thing and everything. I think I'm not against development. I'd like to see more estate development being there. But, you know, I think 81 units in 4.15 hectares is a little intense. And, you know, the public feels sort of the same way and everything. So I can't support this. I like to support it, but I like to have it modified to much more sort of the community. I mean, there is no sort of big development going on around it. You guys have all been out to the community. I think there's a farm next door and there's a couple of houses, but this is really a change of the community. And I just can't support this sort of type of 81 development. Thank you.
So if I might direct a question towards our planner, please. And I agree with Councillor Stewart's assessment of the change in the nature of that particular area down there. Having said that, is from a policy standard, policy understanding, is it over intense? Is it overdeveloped? Is it beyond the level of what our plans are guiding us to do?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So in response to that, I would say that the proposal does meet the minimum density target requirements, and that's with a proposal on full services. And so the desire throughout the county and in the municipality specifically is to see new development on full services, and that is available here through the connection of the sewer to the sewage lagoon to the north and by connecting in with the municipal water supply. And so we don't want to see a situation where you have a very spread out development. When you have full municipal services, that's your opportunity to intensify. However, recognize that this is a very unique location within the municipality. It is within the secondary urban area. It is adjacent to rural areas, so it gives that unique context. And I think the applicant has done its best to meet the density requirements, both the minimum and not coming anywhere close to what the maximum would be permitted for certain densities, for example, in a medium density type environment. They're looking to maintain a low building profile and retain as much of the forested area on the property as possible, recognizing that context. But in return, it does also look at having a low-rise apartment building to accommodate for some of that density and to allow that servicing to be utilized in the best way it can.
So even though it is a change, like we, should we turn it down for that particular reason, that would be significant grounds for appeal for this sort of application. Is that kind of what you're telling us? Yeah. Thank you, thank you, Planner Stewart.
And we'd be paying for it too.
We would be paying for it too. Councillor Blackwell and then Hinchberger, please.
Thank you. Through you, one of the concerns that I've raised earlier was within the zoning bylaw, there's a provision included that would outline that one dwelling unit per lot may be used for short-term rental accommodations. I'm not opposed at this time to it being there, but I'm a bit concerned because when speaking with the planning staff, there are no other zoning amendments that they're aware of. Maybe I shouldn't speak for them. There's no other zoning amendments that you're aware of in the community that have this provision.
That's correct. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not personally aware of any amendments or subdivisions with that clause, but certainly I would defer to maybe some of my colleagues at the county and can certainly look into it, but I'm not aware of any.
Related or a different question? Okay, here we go.
Thank you. Sorry, through you, I just wanted to say that I think that something like that is much better dealt with through our comprehensive zoning bylaw. What I would be concerned about is there have been some discussions around other communities using short-term or licensing or having programs for short-term accommodations. And by baking it into this specific bylaw, it could potentially grandfather it in. So it would not be perhaps as applicable through the potentially new programs that we bring in or through the comprehensive zoning bylaw, which I feel is a more appropriate way to manage this.
Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through your mayor. It's unrelated. Is that okay? Sure. All right. My questions are related to the draft conditions in there. I like a lot of what I see as far as environmental related to tree retention, edge management and restoration. I think there was one plan ecological related. My question has got to do with the section on notice and warning clauses. I want to know legally it says, for instance, right now that the subdivision agreement between the owner and successors in the municipality include the requirement for following notice/warning clauses to be included in offers of purchase and sale for all draft approved lots. What I'm actually thinking about is the future beyond the initial sale. Are we in a position where these requirements of tree retention plans, stormwater management are going to be legally binding on owners of properties going forward, say past the initial sale?
So as it relates, I'll use maybe the example of the tree retention plan. So it is a requirement of the condition of the conditions for that to be prepared by the owner. Those drawings that are prepared, including the tree retention plan, form part of the subdivision agreement, which would be registered on title. And so that would carry forward and be binding on future owners as well.
Councillor Prenger, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I actually had a similar comment to Councillor Hinchberger's first mention. Was I see quite a few things in the conditions that are sort of, we're heading in the right direction of how we do things, I think, in terms of the environmental considerations. However, so I wanted to commend that. I hope we continue that. But in the agency comments. There is a comment from the Historic Saugeen Métis that they are concerned about the intensity of this project as well. And I feel like we get so much support from that community, and they often have no comments or are very supportive or are very accommodating to anything we want to do on their lands, their original lands, sorry. And they have this comment, we don't address it, and I don't know why, because I have the same concern even, but I feel like their voice is even more important than mine. So I just had to point that out.
If I may, through you, Mr. Mayor, we did note those concerns from the Historic Saugeen Métis and specifically did reach out to them to get clarification on their comment. And so we did provide them with the list of draft plan conditions and specifically asked if through consultation with them on environmental issues, the preparation, for example, of the tree retention plan, ensuring that if there are archaeological resources found moving forward, that they are consulted. They found that the conditions did satisfy their concerns, and so they were okay with the project to move forward.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. Through you, it's more a procedural thing. If we hypothetically said no, and then it goes up to county and they say yes, they're the more senior, so it would be approved. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so that would be the course of action. Although if this council decided that it didn't support the draft approval, then we would certainly bring that back and have a discussion with staff first before we would bring a report to the county to see if there is a mechanism of addressing any concerns before bringing it back to the county table.
Councillor Blackwell.
To follow up, but if the county said yes after all those concerns, what would happen to this proposal?
The subdivision specifically would be approved and then would be open to an appeal period in which the municipality is one of the appeal bodies. So the municipality could potentially appeal that.
Councillor Blackwell, you had a question?
Yes, through you. I have a comment first, which is that one of my concerns, I agree with, I think there's many benefits to this proposal. I think they've done a good job of attempting to maintain the trees and the natural heritage. I think they've kept a low building profile. I am slightly concerned that the lots are so large and it's 5 units per single lot, so per single owner. So it doesn't feel like an affordable housing development to me, but I would like to make a motion that we remove the references to short-term bylaw or short-term rental accommodations from the bylaw. And I'm not sure if there's a seconder for that or not.
So you can't make a motion because we already have a motion on the floor. And that's what I'm going to address the clerk with. She's making you're contemplating.
I would ask Karina if that's an issue if we do that.
Thank you. So the options available to council would be to approve, refuse, or defer the application.
Councillor Blackwell, no, you can't. Councillor Steinhoff, Gray, please.
I actually was with at the OSUM conference where they talked about those short-term rentals and the importance of the policy around them. And it's something we're already getting letters about with people who are concerned about the impacts of the Airbnbs in their neighborhoods. So I actually would like to ask that we defer this and have an opportunity just to review it with the county to make sure we're in line with whatever decision we do or do not take on this. So I just asked to defer.
Before going farther, we if we're going to do that, we need a seconder to do that. Okay. Councillor Kavanaugh, and the question seriously is, what's the outcome? What do you want to gain?
I guess I can ask for clarification.
Excuse me. What do you want to gain tonight that we can't accommodate within our decision at this point? Because if it's just a deferral, it's not productive at all.
Yes, so I guess I'll direct the question at Karina so I can answer that. Karina, if you could, one of the big concerns that came out of OSUM is the need for municipalities to start coming up with short-term housing arrangements and policies. We have yet to do that. So is there any impact? I didn't actually think about it until Beth brought it up, but having went to that conference and hearing the way other communities are challenging with it, and some of the legal issues that have arisen from it, I would just like to understand whether there is an impact if we try to invoke a policy with having that phrasing in this particular piece.
Yes, thank you for the question and through you, Mr. Mayor. So the phrasing that is used in this bylaw, which would be site specific to this property, does align with what we've seen in comprehensive bylaws on the peninsula, in northern Bruce Peninsula and South Bruce Peninsula. Of course, not knowing what Kincardine would be looking to propose through its update to the comprehensive bylaw, I can't say for certain that it would be exactly the same language, but it would be something similar, I imagine. In terms of what the implications are, if this site-specific zoning bylaw amendment were approved and then later the municipality brought in short-term accommodation across the municipality, this language would be site-specific to this proposal and would continue moving forward.
So the question, just for clarification, if we pass this and then develop a short-term rental policy, are these properties captured in that policy the same as all the other policy or all the other pre-existing short-term rental properties in our municipality?
In terms of the bylaw, the language would be specific to this site and any future bylaw would not change that. In terms of the policy application, I would have to defer to the clerks or to legal on that.
Councillor Hinchberger, you had a question? Does it deal with the deferral?
It does.
Okay.
But you're at the point. Are we in the discussion related to the deferral? I think there's a fundamental difference here between some of the letters we've been getting from members of the community about short-term rentals, in that this is planned and from the outset, it's going to incorporate this. One thing that's been in common with a lot we received is people that are in residential areas thinking it was entirely residential. There wouldn't be short-term rental, and then all of a sudden it's surprise. But that isn't the case here. So there's one here, it's like full disclosure up front. This is what it is. There should be none of these surprises. Yeah, that's enough for that.
All right, we have a motion to defer. All in favor of deferring, please indicate. All opposed? So that was defeated. So we have a motion on the floor that there are three main points. That committee of the whole recommend that council approve the draft plan of subdivision. That council approve the zoning bylaw amendment, and that we resolve that no further notice is necessary with respect to the minor change. So that's no more public notice for that. All in favor of supporting this motion, please indicate. All opposed? And that motion is carried, and abstentions are a negative vote, just so you know. So that motion did carry. All right, water, wastewater master plan update, environmental services. Clerk, we have a motion, please.
Moved by Andrea Clark, seconded by Rory Kavanaugh, that committee of the whole recommend that council move forward with issuance of the notice of master plan as noted in Environmental Services Report 2023-25.
All right. Does anyone from staff want to comment on this update, or do you just want us to start asking questions, or how would you like to move forward on that?
Through you, Mayor Craig. I'll just quickly touch on, kind of maybe why we undertake the master planning exercise, what we've accomplished since the inception, so the original from 2018, and kind of where it takes us going forward. So as a staff and a council back in 2018, we went through this process and in similar fashion. At that time, things were approved. What that allowed staff to do was basically to start developing a vision and a capital plan to be able to get ahead of development needs within the community. So through that, there's been substantial investment over the last 4 or 5 years. And so those projects that were identified in the previous master plan that were completed, standpipe upgrades to the booster pump stations at both locations, water, wastewater, servicing upgrades in areas of Russell, Sutton, Kincardine Ave, Gary, Mechanics, James Streets, all in Kincardine. We installed the Gary Street booster pumping station as part of the not only the the MCR build, but took a look at that more broadly in terms of development opportunities and lands out behind the hospital. And then most recently the Huron Terrace pump station upgrade and the force main. And then in this year's budget, we have a project that'll be coming, I would assume, in August for council consideration. And that's upgrades to the Durham Street sewage pumping station. And all of that's a reflection of capacity needs and growth opportunities. And so the purpose of the master plan here now is a refresh on that to understand, the projects that remain, are they still the right focal points? Has the development landscape changed since we last looked at this? And what are the forthcoming constraints? So I think, if you look through it, many of the projects that are still listed there were identified in 2018. But one of the, I think, major differences that, in my opinion, that you'll see, and Councillor Steinhoff-Gray had pointed out this evening as well, is that we do have capacity constraints in terms of the water supply system in Tiverton. And so ultimately what that's going to necessitate or force, in a sense, is a decision on how we provide water to the community of Tiverton. And, is that through the addition of another well system there? Is that through connection of the pipeline? And so back to budget timelines, we talked about an environmental assessment to look at the best path forward to connect Tiverton to water for the future. And that's something that staff will be bringing back, I would assume, in the next few months for council to consider. I will note too, Lisa Courtney from BM Ross, who assisted in this process, is here tonight as well. If council does have questions that staff are unable to answer, we may rely on her. But that's just a quick overview of kind of where we came from over the last 4 or 5 years. And really, in my opinion, the document now, we're asking council to support it, and that a number of these items are already in our capital plans, and we've identified them for future projects. But just looking for council to endorse that, and then going forward, we use this as a foundational guide to make sure that we can meet the development needs.
Thank you, Director. We certainly have seen the budgetary demands, and we've heard the broad policy changes that our water, wastewater have gone through. And certainly, just for clarification, the motion is that we move forward with issuance of the notice of master plan. Does that just mean we agree with it, or are there other actions that are coming out of an issuance of notice? Exactly what does that mean for council?
Through you, Mayor Craig. So if you were to have looked at the 2018 report and historical ones, they were actually, it was the notice of completion. So through this motion, council is saying we do support and agree with the master planning document, and we are essentially, council is declaring it official.
Any questions or clarification from council members, please? Councillor Steinhoff-Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. And I'd just like to acknowledge the work that clearly went into this documentation. So I do appreciate that. I guess one of my questions that I would ask is, in light of the announcement for the potential growth in our community, is this something we're going to need to, I feel like we might want to do a little bit of reassessment based on that announcement, because I think it could have changed some of the projections that we had. So I don't know whether that's prudent, but I'd ask the question.
So through you, Mayor Craig, that's certainly a fair question. I think at this point, we're probably likely trying to understand, what that true impact is. But in terms of the growth projections that are used to, take a look at what is the 10 and 20-year horizon for supply needs from a servicing aspect, we'll have to work, I think, in parallel to, to what Bruce Power is going to continue to give us for information. One thing I would suggest to council on that is that You know, as we advance to try and complete a draft servicing agreement consideration with Bruce Power, one of our recent questions as well with their announcement is, you know, what does that shift on their own site do to our water supply? And so just in that dynamic of giving them service for their business opportunity, we need to know that. And through that, hopefully we can gain a better understanding of what that impact may look like on a, you know, a residential supply need too.
Yeah, just a slight follow-up. If we're going to be doing that in parallel, one of the things that was mentioned in the report, and I'm really glad that BM Ross is here today because this is a parallel question. There was a couple different sections where it specified that the data provided was based exclusively on modeling and that we would need to do some field tests to confirm the assumptions being made from the models. So in the 2018 plan, I don't know whether we had the same constraint and whether or not we did testing to show the validity of that modeling that was applied, but how we build that into the assessment as we go through.
Yep, just introduce yourself when you come to the microphone, please. Yep.
Certainly. So, my name is Lisa Courtney, and I'm a planner with BM Ross and Associates, and I was involved mostly on the planning side of this master plan. My colleague Andrew, who was the project engineer, couldn't be here tonight, but if there's any really specific technical questions, I can take those back to him because, as I said, planner, not an engineer. So with respect to fire flows and calibrating the model, we're fairly confident in the model. One of the ways we do calibrate models is through hydrant testing. And that's something, you know, if the municipality is able and willing to do that, we can do that and calibrate the model against it. If not, it's not make or break. It's not, you know, we're not 50% off generally. It's much closer than that. So in terms of, you know, that's something the municipality can do going forward, especially if there are areas where there's really specific concerns. So if it's, you know, if you're getting close to the capacity, that's, you know, somewhere where you might look at doing some hydrant testing to see if how close that model was.
So if I could three-way, if we do build those tests in, you would have more effective modeling also because we'd be refining the model against the data points received.
Yep.
Perfect.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, this is a very exciting master plan. It's probably I haven't quite got through it. So if you wouldn't mind, could you give me a hard copy of it? Because I have to make a few notes on it. So I don't know if the rest of the council wants a hard copy. It's very exciting reading. It is really, to make it serious, I mean, they point out some real shortages. And we could have a face of a shortage and we could have a new water treatment plant, which is $30 million. So I'm just trying to understand that we do a notice tonight, but there's also a 30-day public review period. What happens to all those reviews in 30 days? Do we incorporate it in the plan? Or do we just make note of them and add them as an addition to the plan?
Depends on what the comments are. You know, if we just get very kind of questions, we'll just note those and include them kind of as a back page on the report. If there's something more serious, we might go back and make some changes to the document and then reissue the notice.
Thank you for reporting that back. Also, I think, you know, as a council, you know, this has huge financial implications. And we actually get a report from another company called Hempson Report. I believe, I'm not sure when the next report's due, but that talks about the financial and talks about the reserves. Because we're all aware of in council, the last two major projects, and one is just being done right now, is being actually debt from outside the reserves. So we had to go outside. So some of this stuff could have so I'm thinking that maybe we should be looking, I know the report's there, but we also need to bring the financial folks back and really sort of take a look at a 5-year plan and really take a look at the reserves. Because if we have to add a lot of capacity at the water treatment plant, I'm not picking on you, Adam, but it is expensive. And we do have a problem with our water treatment plant. It's in the wrong location if we really have to expand it. But I'm just sort of saying we need to put the two pieces together. And if you wouldn't mind, Adam, maybe you can give some of the council the Henson report or get it, because then it'll give you the financial side of the business long term. Thank you.
So before our director responds, I concur with your comments, except it's not a 5-year plan. It's like start at 10 and go out to 20, because it's much broader than we even start to think about. Director, please, and then Councillor Hinchberger.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Craig. So the two components to the mayor's point, certainly we have a capital planning tool, and we do look out 10 years with that. From the Hempson aspect, so that study is done every 5 years. That's a mandated requirement, and essentially what that does is it helps guide us to make sure that we're putting away sufficient funds to maintain our water system. And so that was last done in 2019, so it'll be due for an update in the fiscal year of 2024.
Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through your mayor. Actually, it's a general comment related to this issue and the one before it. I think most of us accept and realize we're entering a period of a lot of change, and it's not going to be comfortable. And we're not going to get everything perfect. And we're going to have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and relying on a lot of plan, do, check, act, and looking at things in between normal revision frequencies. Like the master plan is not a static document. It's something that's got, I imagine, at least a 4-year review frequency, and can be triggered to look at it more closely in between that. So I think that this is exciting and scary. And I think we're just going to do the best we can.
So we have the motion before us that we recommend that we move forward with issuance of the notice of master plan as noted in the environmental services report. All in favor of the motion? Anyone opposed? And that's carried. Thank you so much for your input tonight.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Mystic Cove Gate Operations 2023. No. I hear what you're saying, but the members of the public are here for those. If you need to absent yourself, that is not illegal or improper, but you can do that. But council itself will not stop for a break with the members of the public here tonight. Mystic Cove Gate Operations. Clerk, please.
Moved by Amanda Steinhoff Gray, seconded by Doug Kennedy, that committee of the whole recommend that council direct staff to amend bylaw 2011-068 to permit the opening of the Mystic Cove Gate from December 1st through February 28th annually, and further that council repeal policy TP 3.1 emergency access to the Bruce nuclear power development, and further that council make their decision at the August 14th, 2023 meeting to allow further engagement amongst council and the community on the recommendation.
Thank you for that. I'd like to express my thanks to staff for the report that came out on this. There were a multitude of options, each of which had its merits, pros and cons. So thank you for that. The decision will not be made on Mystic Cove. What will actually happen, the decision will be finalized as it comments on August 14th. However, at this point, I'm going to afford each council member opportunity. We're just going around the table one time. If you can comment or not. You can say which option you prefer. Please keep your comments short because we're all dying to go to the washroom here, but we're not going to right away. So we will start with Councillor Kennedy, please. Can we defer that? Councillor Blackwell.
Thank you. Through you. I was initially under the impression that I would have to declare a pecuniary interest on this because my husband works at Bruce Power, but I was instructed by the Integrity Commissioner that this is a broader issue that affects the entire community, so I do not have to. I certainly have concerns about the road, particularly in the summer. And the prior reports have indicated that the road is deficient, but I feel that staff have proposed a positive trial run, I guess. And so I would be supportive of that at this time.
Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I can't actually recommend the staff recommendation at this particular time. I would like the staff to do, I think it's too long to be open from December to March. I think we can actually accomplish what we need to accomplish in the safety of the community in a shorter time frame. But it's going to need a little more research and a few more options. I'm thinking that, you know, basically we might need to have a camera at the gate and maybe a camera along County Road 23, because I'm not quite sure. I've been stuck in Kincardine a few times, and unfortunately the morning meetings were fine, but when I headed back to Inverhuron where I live, I noticed that that road should have been closed. I phoned the police and they say they don't close it until they actually drive it. Maybe I can ask Adam, who's official to close that part of 23? Who actually says yes to that?
So through you, Mayor Craig, the Ontario Provincial Police are the, have the authority through the Highway Traffic Act to open and close a road. The road authority as well, pending they have bylaws in place, should have staff designated to make those decisions as well. So it can be a combination of either, so.
Just to follow up then, and thank you very much, Adam. I would like to even take other research and maybe ask the staff to see if we can actually make that opportunity for the road to be open even a smaller amount. I mean, when I look at 22 and 23, we probably needed that gate open minimum probably 10 times. And I know that there's staff requirements and everything, but now with the new technology and, everyone's got Ring on their door now, you can open doors, you can close doors, you can actually get a camera, you can open and close gates. I really would rather see that gate open, just the bare minimum for safety. Thank you.
Councillor Pranger, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I hear the concerns on both sides of the argument, and I actually have some of my own concerns. I won't get into too much detail because I do want to look into it a little further. I'm glad that we're not making a decision tonight. I know this needs to get decided, but I hear what Councillor Stewart's saying. I actually think that there were some good solutions proposed by some of the community members that might take some financial considerations by the municipality, and we have to spend some money, but I actually think it might be worth it. So I would like to look into those options a bit more before I say more. Thank you.
Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through your mayor. I look at the old policy. I looked at where we were several months ago, what was presented, the public information that was held, the quality of the report tonight. It's a bit of a bumpy road, but based on what's in front of me, I think that I feel more and more confident that we're getting to a point where we have like high quality information to make an informed decision on this subject.
Councillor Kennedy, please.
Yeah, thanks for that. I just had to bring up some things that I made there. I don't want to see the gate removed. I'm worried about the road a little bit too, the quality of the road. Shortened time frame, I don't really have a problem with that either, but anyway, safety is always, just, that's always a concern of mine also. So, to confer with the OPP and things like that. So that's all I have through the chair.
Councillor Stanoff, great, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So just to be clear, we're not making a decision tonight. One of the things I will say is that I want to say thank you to the staff, but also thank you to the community members who took the time to respond to the survey, and thirdly, came out to Underwood to speak to us directly. One of the things I was most struck by was there seemed to be a willingness to compromise to a certain extent. And everyone's arguments were safety based. So safety in getting safe passage if they needed it when the weather is incremental. And also the safety of the folks living on that street, the people using that street, and especially knowing the high number of kids on that street and all the bus stops that are actually scheduled on that street, taking all that into consideration. So I'd just like to thank everyone, because everyone, no matter what side of the fence they were on, was bringing up safety considerations. I think this allows for a more targeted solution, or discussion at least, because now we have a suggestion that's on the table. And the window, just to be clear, Bill, that I believe the staff are recommending is December 1st through to February 28th. They've dramatically reduced the original recommendation. So I feel like I'll be interested to see how people feel. But based on those discussions in Underwood, I think that this might be something that is palatable. Thank you.
Councillor Kavanaugh, please.
Thank you very much. And through the chair, I just wanted to add on top of everything my other counselors have said that this has actually been a really pleasant issue, so to speak, compared to some of the other ones that have come forward, because everyone that I've been communicating with, no, for real, has been like polite and civil. And like compared to some of the other messages that get pushed forward, people have addressed this in a very rational and a polite manner. And I really appreciate that.
Deputy Mayor. Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. I really enjoyed the opportunity to meet with the residents and have face-on-face discussions and hear from the residents, both anecdotal stories about their experience with traffic in the area. So that was extremely helpful, as was the report. So I thank staff for the detailed report and the time that's gone into that. I don't know that I have a firm position. So the fact that we're not making a decision tonight is helpful, and we continue to welcome feedback from the community, because at this point there is a lot to consider. I do think the staff has come a long way with regards to the recommendation in trying to find some form of resolution, and I think they've done a great job in doing so.
So it's all the comments that have come forward, as Councillor Steinhoff Gray, time and time again, it's about safety. Safety not only in the summertime, because Victoria Street was never designed to be an arterial road, and safety in the wintertime to allow safe passage for emergencies of whatever kind to access passable roads. This may or may not have been my preferred option, but it's one that I'm comfortable with. It is a result of significant staff consideration. And, had I written the report? No, not this one, but I'm quite confident and settled if when this one comes forward, I'm be quite happy to say, yeah, we can do this. And as Councillor Hinchberger said, we're in the midst of change, folks. And the great thing about change is if it doesn't work, and I don't want it to not work for all the wrong reasons. If it doesn't work, then you change, and you evaluate, you amend, and you come out with a better solution. So I look forward to the decision that council will make on the 14th of August, and I look forward to the comments that we might receive between now and then too, regarding all sorts of parts of this agreement. So. No, thanks. D, Livingston. Oh, I'm sorry. We had a motion. That's right. Were you voting on the motion? Okay, we can do that. All in favor of the proposed motion that was presented? Anyone opposed to that? And that's carried. We'll address this issue 14th of August. Livingston Group Inc. subdivision agreement. Clerk, please, for your motion.
Moved by Beth Blackwell, seconded by Bill Stewart, that committee of the whole recommend that council approve the subdivision agreement for the Linstone Group Inc. substantially in the form attached to report development services 2023-22 be approved by council by bylaw, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute any documents and agreements required by the approval of this agreement.
Director, would you like to make any comments on this prior to questions, or it's all here? So the plan of subdivision, once again, the same as the Tidman report. Agreements are all in place. It's just a substantial, it's the signing of everything is substantially done as far as the reports and required assessment tools, all those sorts of things. Okay. Council members, are there any questions regarding this proposal? Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. And through you, under, I can actually quote it. I think it's Schedule M of the agreement, special provisions. And the following special provision applies to this agreement. So the parkland dedication, they always have the option. I'm not sure who makes that option, but we do have the option to either take parkland or in lieu of cash, which is fine. And it's 35,000. I don't really have a problem with that, actually. The second part I really have a problem with. The second one says canopy offset. The developer agrees to provide the municipality the sum of 27,528 for conservation efforts to offset canopy removal. Now, this one really has caused a lot of problems in the community because I don't think there's a tree on the property anymore. So I think 27,528 to bring back some sort of trees is a little light. And I'd like to at least mend this thing and double that cost to the developer. And I'm not sure if I can, but I think that would at least, because the tree removal was severe. And I think that we need to, and maybe even put the parkland dedication money towards the canopy and make it 35 foot towards it. And I'm not sure if we can do that, but I think it would really help to offset some of the community frustration with this whole development. Thank you.
To the director, just a question. Were there any trees removed in that development that were not approved to be removed? Like, was there any was there any trees taken down that did not have permission to be removed?
Through you, Mayor Craig, all of the trees that were removed were done so with appropriate permits.
So even though it looked significant, there was nothing untoward or anything in regard to that?
So through you, Mayor Craig, I'll actually take a slight step back. So the only contravention that would be there would be based on the county's forestry bylaw and based on the size of the lot. It would have exceeded the land mass in terms of being in contradiction to that. So we did have discussion with the county forester, and they had the opportunity to lay a fine at that time. However, they did not, and that was based on the fact that the land was official, like in the official plan, designated for development, and that the proposal coming forward was sound in a sense.
So the numbers proposed were based on logic and not just a number that came out of a tree. There was some fact-based establishment of guidelines here.
Yeah, so just to quickly explain that, and through you, Mayor Craig, with an adjacent development that went through an OLT process, the Keldon site, part of their arrangement is that they made a contribution to us. So what we did at a staffing level is we took a look at the lot coverage of the Keldon site based on our GIS mapping for what the canopy looked like, and use that same arithmetic to calculate what the contribution would be here based on that benchmark. Without a policy in place, we really don't have anything that like from a governance perspective to push on. So as the ad hoc committee moves that policy forward, hopefully we can have some firm framework that we want to hinge on going forward. But for this particular development, we used the only benchmark that we really had to go by, and felt that for the lack of a better term, that approach was better than not trying to seek some compensation for the loss of tree canopy.
Councillor Prenger, you had a question?
Through you, Chair, thank you. Who issued the permits for removing the trees? And I'm sorry, I just want to clarify, they were issued before the trees were removed, not after the fact, to allow permission after?
So through you, Mayor Craig, the municipality does not have a permitting process, so it's something we didn't have to issue to a property owner. They had done their environmental impact study, and through that, it had sign off that they were able to remove the trees.
Okay, sorry, just a clarification. My question was, who issued the permits, simply because you had said specifically that they did it in accordance with the permit. So
So through your Mayor Craig, to correct all of that, we do not issue permits for tree removals. So.
Councillor Hinchberger, you had a question, please.
I did. Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Actually, I was going to go at Councillor Stewart's point from a different perspective. In Schedule M of the agreement, how was the 27,528 for canopy offset derived?
So through you, Mayor Craig. So to the site to the south, which is the Keldon site, they have a contribution of $20,000, I believe, for tree canopy. So if you envision that site, and these are hypothetical numbers, but let's say it had 80% coverage. We took the figure of 80% coverage, and that required a contribution based on the land mass. So if it was 4 acres and 80% of it was covered, we came up with a figure from that equated into the 20,000. So that particular number then we used based on the land coverage for this particular site here, based on the overall acreage. So. Yes.
Counselor Kennedy, please.
Yeah, through the chair. You know, I think this is long overdue. It's zoned residential. People are gonna love living beside that golf course. I imagine people that are gonna sell their big homes and downsize, and that'll open up homes for other people. You know, no different than out in the outskirts of our municipality. Keith and Linda Battler are invested people in our community, give back. I don't see that from other developers. Well, I do one or two other ones, but they don't only build things, but they're involved in our municipality. Thank you.
Counselor Stewart, please. You had a question?
No, I think I'll pass. Thank you.
Are there any other issues regarding the plan of subdivision? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor that we recommend to council that council approve the subdivision agreement and the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the documents. All in favor of that motion? Any opposed? And that's carried. If you would like, we can break for a 5-minute time now. Thank you very much for your patience. I appreciate it. Okay, folks, welcome to our resumed council meeting. We are on Echo holding.
You'll get there eventually.
I'm grateful there's only like 7 letters in the alphabet, in my alphabet.
Resistance is big.
Holding removal bylaw for the Bradstone development. Clerk, please, we have a motion for that.
Moved by Jennifer Prenger, seconded by Mike Hinchberger, that committee of the whole recommend that council of the municipality of Kincardine pass a bylaw for the removal of the holding H provision from part lot 18, concession A, Kincardine, part 1, plan 3R 10519, together with an easement over part lot 18, concession A, Kincardine, part 2, plan 3R 10519, as in BR 164551, municipality Kincardine.
Manager McNabb, would you like to speak to this before we offer time for questions?
Sure, through you, Mayor. This here just is similar to the whole removal we did last month, but this is for the Bradstones off of Golf Links there. They've fulfilled the conditions within the zoning bylaw to move forward with removal of that holding provision. So with that, one of the conditions to remove that holding provision was that we entered into a site plan control agreement, which we've done that too, and I thank my colleagues, staff too, working with. We've incorporated a pre-servicing component to the site plan and control agreement, which will help expedite Mr. Freeman's development. So with that removal of the holding provision, we can have that agreement also registered, and then moving concurrently with do believe Kareem there, we have a vacant lot condominium agreement going concurrently with this process.
So broadly speaking, the holding provision goes on to prevent movement ahead of things until other conditions are fulfilled. At this point, all those supporting conditions have been fulfilled. We remove the holding provision, and then the development continues on to the next logical step. Okay, are there any questions that council would like to direct towards our manager? All in favor of the motion, please indicate, and that's carried. Various culvert replacement tender. Clerk, please.
This is moved by Andrea Clark, seconded by Roy Kavanaugh, that committee of the whole recommend that council award project 9114 various culvert repairs to EC King Contracting for the tendered amount of $205,921.18.
So you've heard the motion. Is there any discussion? Councillor Stewart, please.
Always when there's some financial repercussions, but this is a little bit of an oops, I guess, and it's understandable, but I guess we were trying to do 2 for our budget, and it came in way over budget, so we decided to do the tie road at 206, and that's what we're awarding. But we also found out that we had a little problem in the south line. That only leaves you 119,000 left over. I just wanted to ask the question, is that going to be enough? Because it looks like the north line, we're gonna have to put in 24 budget, correct? So maybe you can help me with 119,000. We're gonna be able to figure out the south line?
So through you, Mayor, excellent question, Councillor Stewart. I don't have the final quoted numbers on my desk. What I can tell you is that doing it in-house will be considerably less, obviously, as contracted out, tendered, that sort of thing. There's the overhead involved, inherited risk as far as stuff like dewatering that they bid a certain amount, taking into consideration that water levels can rise, stuff like that. So in-house, we would be only incurring the cost that we do the work on.
Thank you very much. Good luck.
All in favor of the motion? That's carried. Award municipal drain 21 tender, environmental services. Clerk, please.
This is moved by Amanda Steinhoff Gray, seconded by Doug Kennedy. That committee of the whole recommend that council award the contract for municipal drain number 21 to TAS Excavating and Rentals Limited Construction Corp. for the bid price of $652,300.93, including the municipal share of the HST.
So you've heard the motion. Is there any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. The Kincardine Effluent Generator Environmental Services tender. Clerk, please.
Moved by Beth Blackwell, seconded by Bill Stewart, that council award the contract for a new generator at the Kincardine Effluent Station to 262983 Ontario Inc., OA Phoenix Electric and Rentals for the bid price of $118,728.48, including the municipal share of the HST. And further, that the 2023 budget be amended to fund the additional cost of overage of $28,728 from the Sewer Reserve Fund 67.
So you've heard the motion. Is there any questions? Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you very much. And through you, once again, we had a budget of 90,000. We're about 30,000 over, which is about 32%. We do have to be careful. I'm seeing this more and more, but as we set apart the budget, if everything goes over, we'll be in a little bit of trouble. So I'm hoping there's some savings. Maybe you can just help me out. Why are we 30,000? Did we just sort of underestimate it, or can anyone help me out here?
Through you, Mayor Craig. So the budgetary number, I believe, was a number that was proposed for 2021. With the fluctuation in pricing, Councillor Stewart, the electrical component of it is actually I would say where the prices are still a little too high for market value. In addition, we have proposed some cement work to the building. So one of the main issues there is that station is disinfected with UV, and when staff were rolling the UV or are rolling the UVs on the cart, they actually run through a grass path to get it into the building for maintenance. Those UV parts are probably worth $10,000 to rebuild. So we decided to include some cement work as well in the tender to ensure that we are getting those into the building cleaned and reducing risk of damage to those units.
That's excellent. And thank you for doing that. That's great. Thanks for explaining it.
So we have the motion in front of us. All in favor? And that's carried. All right, 6.2 information reports. Any questions, comments? Infrastructure quarterly reports, Bradstone Development, Kingsborough Site Plan, Environmental Services Compliance Report. Okay, clerk, motion to adjourn, please.
Moved by Jennifer Pringer, seconded by Mike Hinchberger, that this committee of the whole adjourn at 7:05 p.m.
All in favor? And that's carried. So we're back in committee of the whole. Here we go. Oh, no, we're back in council, arising from committee of the whole. Okay, we have several motions to go through to receive recommendations from committee of the whole, and we will go through these. So we have the John Tidman development motion, please.
Moved by Andrea Clark, seconded by Rory Kavanagh, that the council approved draft plan of subdivision S 2022-15 by JHY2INV Development Inc. in accordance with the draft plan and conditions of draft approval, and that council resolved that no further notice is necessary with respect to the minor change in the proposed zoning amendment in accordance with the provisions of section 3417 of the Planning Act, and further that the amend zoning bylaw 2003 bylaw Inverhuron lots 6 to 10 East Victoria Street, West Albert Street, Municipality of Kincardine, Bruce Township, JHT2 and INV Development Inc. bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, and third time. Finally passed, numbered as bylaw 2023-121.
All in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Water wastewater master plan update. Clerk, please.
Moved by Amanda Steinhoff Gray, seconded by Doug Kennedy, that council move forward with issuance of the notice of master plan as noted in Environmental Services Report 2023-5.
All in favor? And that's carried. Linston Group Inc. subdivision agreement. Clerk, please.
Moved by Beth Blackwell, seconded by Bill Stewart, that the Linstone Group Inc. subdivision agreement 2023 bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, and third time. Finally passed, numbered as bylaw 2023-122.
Heard the motion. All in favor? Anyone opposed? That's carried. amendment to comprehensive zoning bylaw holding removal, Bradstone's bylaw. Clerk, please.
Moved by Jennifer Pranger, seconded by Mike Kinchberger, that the amendment to comprehensive zoning bylaw 2003-25 holding removal Bradstone's bylaw be deemed to read a first, second, and third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw 2023-123.
For the motion, all in favor? And that's carried. Award project for various culverts. Clerk, please.
Moved by Andrea Clark, seconded by Rory Kavanaugh, that the award project 9114-02 various culvert repairs bylaw be deemed to read a first, second, and third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw 2023-124.
So you've heard the motion, all in favor of that, and that's carried. Award tender for the municipal drain 21 bylaw. Clerk, please.
Moved by Amanda Steinhoff Gray, seconded by Doug Kennedy, that the award tender RFT 9414 municipal drain number 21 bylaw be deemed to read a first, second, and third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw 2023-125.
So you've heard the motion, all in favor, and that's carried. Award tender for the generator bylaw. Clerk, please.
Moved by Beth Blackwell, seconded by Bill Stewart, that the award tender RFQ number 029470 bylaw be deemed to read a first, second, and third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw number 2023-126.
So you've heard the motion, all in favor, and that's carried. All right, members of council, general announcements. Deputy Mayor.
It's a Blues Festival this weekend, so we'll look forward to seeing you out there.
Councillor Kavanaugh,
Nothing at this time.
Councillor Steinhoff Gray, please.
Nothing at this time.
Councillor Kennedy.
Well, just Scottish Festival, anybody who was there volunteering or participating, unbelievable. The number of volunteers for that and the Rock the Docks and this coming weekends. I don't know what other small municipality this size in the province of Ontario that does the things that we do here to the level of what we do it here. It's pretty amazing, to be honest, and it's just not here, throughout the municipality. I know Jennifer's going to talk about the Lions on July 29th, now that I have the date right in my head. And no, I just got to give a big shout out to all the people that make things happen.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. I don't have too much to say other than my son just finished his first week of Municipality of Kincardine Day Camp and has very positive reviews of it. He's looking forward very much to his next week in a few weeks.
Councillor Stewart, you're one of the leaders of Playground, aren't you? Didn't I see you there with your shirt on?
I always like to participate. Captain Canada. Unfortunately, I have it turned out to be okay, but there is a little bit of a safety issue here at Huron. And I like to do a shout out to our volunteer Tiverton fire folks and the police and everything and the paramedics. We almost had 5 drownings. And it happened all in one night. And it really is a safety thing that you get a lot of guests or people who are not familiar with the water. You get a north wind and all of a sudden the undertows or the riptides are coming. And people had to, and the community did, risk their lives to go and save those 5 children and an elderly gentleman. Everyone turned out to be okay, but we're going to have to start putting signs, memos, some sort of type on the website. This water can take lives, and certain times it's quite dangerous. And we try to ask people, at least in Huron, if it's rough, go play in the beach. It's a lot safer than playing on the rock beach. So I just wanted to tell you, it certainly excited the community, and there's a lot of people that really helped out, and thank God that nobody got hurt. Thank you.
Councillor Pranger.
Thank you. I had wanted to mention the Kincardine Lions All-Wheel Park Fun Day on the 29th, Saturday. I was frantically trying to look up the details because I had them up and I closed that window. So I guess you'd have to go to the Kincardine Lions Facebook page or their webpage to find out the details. But yes, it's Saturday on the 29th.
Councillor Inchberger.
I have nothing to add tonight, Your Honor.
All right. Well, I want to talk about something really exciting called development charges. And the county is doing a study considering the implementation of development charges, which would be added on to municipal development charges, because that is the only way by which the county can get those charges to help support infrastructure. So there was a stakeholder meeting July 5th, and that meeting is available on the Bruce County website. But we were supposed to have another public meeting on August the 3rd, but it has been postponed until September 7th. So there is a development charge meeting, public meeting, September 7th at the Bruce County Council Chambers in Walkerton. I also would like to big shout out for the Scottish Festival organizers. There will be evaluations and debriefings and thoughts and ideas about how to continue and improve it for next year. Went to market in the park and was forced to buy some really scrumptious things today. It was in Tiverton, and the vendors were quite appreciative of the opportunity to gather there. I'm going to need some, perhaps some help from our clerk. I had in my phone about Lake Huron Center for Coastal Conservation doing a beach cleanup on Saturday, Station Beach, 10 o'clock in the morning. If you are interested in understanding the dynamic nature of our beach or able to come and help clean up a little bit to preserve that awesome treasure that Kincardine has, you're welcome to come and participate in that. CAO, do you have any announcements as well?
I do just have a general comment. I think we're halfway through the year, and the second little section of updates, you've received all of them from the departments, and they go in the consent agenda. I think we've accomplished a heck of a lot, and I think this meeting was another example of wrapping up certain files or finalizing things to see development moving along. I think we're making a lot of progress, and I just really wanted to thank both council and staff for helping us to get there. I think we're being very productive, and I really appreciate council's approach to that and the senior management team as well.
Thank you for that. All right, we have a closed session on our agenda this evening. I'd ask the clerk to read the motion to move us into closed session, please.
Moved by Jennifer Prenger, second by Mike Hinchberger, that council move into closed meeting for the purpose of considering a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, MTO Land Acquisition, Russell Street and Highway 21, pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended. Further, that council return to regular open meeting upon completion.
So you've heard the